Welcome to Masonic Memories. Do you recognize any of the people in these pictures? Do you remember any of the events? Some of these people had prestigious positions in Grand Lodge. Others were wonderful ritualists, and others were the life of our parties. They all devoted a lifetime to our Masonic fraternity. Unfortunately, many were taken from us way too early. So sit back, grab a coffee, and listen to us reminisce about these amazing people who were such devoted members and contributed so much to our lodge. This morning, we're sitting down with Robert Floyd Jones, a proud Marine who joined the Masonic fraternity in 1973 and was installed Master of our lodge in 1978. Bob, we want to thank you for coming over and willing to talk to me about some Masonic issues.
It's my pleasure.
And I think the first thing I want to talk about is how did we get to have adult beverages in our lodge?
Well, I became a steward, got in line, and at the time I was in advertising sales, selling advertising space for a chain of newspapers headquartered in Natick. And one of my clients was over in Wellesley, the Wellesley Cheese Shop, and they used to buy advertising in the newspaper. And I had just become a steward in line, and the collations were kind of boring back then, didn't have a whole lot of people attending lodge and back in the old building before it burned down. So I just made it, took it upon myself, I guess, to just do what I wanted to do, which I was accustomed to doing, an old jarhead like myself, And I also like to taste now and then. I thought, hey, let's have a wine and cheese collation. And other past masters, oh, you can't do that. Grand Lodge won't let you do that. So, okay, but I'm going to do it anyway. What's the worst thing that can happen, right? Well, come to find out, I don't know if a Grand Lodge really said you can't do that or not, but I started doing that, and we published it in the communication that there'll be a wine and cheese collation following the meeting, and we had a few extra brothers show up, and it went over pretty well, and no one lined me up in a firing squad for doing it, so I said, well, let's try that again next month, and we published it again. That will be after the meeting there will be a wine and something, I forget what it was. We did that next time, and all of a sudden we started getting more and more brothers attending lodge, and got to the point where we actually had to put extra seats out in front of the benches that we had in the lodge before it burned down. So that went over quite well. It was interesting, and it seemed to work out. We never got in trouble from Grand Lodge, as far as I could tell.
And even through today, when we have hard liquor there, I think it's a big draw.
Oh,
and gets
of course
people
it is.
there. We all enjoy that.
And it was shortly after that that I decided, well, let's do something a little bit different too, rather than having pastries and donuts and coffee in addition to the wine and cheese. We started with knockwurst and sauerkraut sandwiches and the rolls. And that went over pretty big, and we change up now and then to kielbasa or something like that. So that probably is where I started actually having almost like a meal collations after lodge. And it went over so big that at the Masonic Home out in Charlton, when they had their annual festival, myself and I think it was Dick Johnson and a couple of others, I can't remember who, we set up a booth out at the Charlton home, and we're selling the submarine sandwiches with knockwurst and sauerkraut and kielbasa in them, and we sold out. So it was a good time, and they went over pretty well. And from that point forward, we're just getting more and more people coming in, and the sidelines were always packed. If you didn't get there early, you didn't get a comfortable seat. You had to sit in one of those folding chairs. So it worked out pretty well. And we brought in a lot of new brothers a lot of new Masons because of that as well. We would have 5 new candidates a month and more waiting. We couldn't do more than 5 at a time. We actually had a couple of special communications to bring new members in.
I can attest to that. You were junior warden. You were senior warden when I joined, and there were 5 in my class.
Yeah, there was, I don't think, there was a long stretch there where I don't think we had anything less than 5 candidates every month. And if you go back and check the records and the communications from years ago, and hopefully those are around someplace. I know a number of them probably got lost in the fire, but you'll probably find that that we've never had less than 5 for many, many, many years.
Now, I know you're an avid hunter, but do you remember Dave Schneer?
Yes, the name is very familiar to me, and I knew him from someplace other than, I think, the Masonic Lodge.
Well, he was district deputy. He was from Southborough, and he used to make venison stew. Is that the part you remember? He'd make venison stew,
That's probably is.
and that was a big hit.
Oh, yeah, I make venison stew today. Although this year's been a real slow year for me. It's the first time in many, many years I don't have 2 hanging in the cooler right now. So and I'm hoping I'm going to correct that this afternoon.
Okay, good. I remember now a guy named Carl Tarsus. Well, his last name was Tarsus. I believe he was from Sudbury. He made a donation to the lodge, and you decided to, I think it was unrestricted, and you decided to create the scholarship fund with that. Do you remember that, or creating
I remember
the
the
committee?
scholarship fund being started, and it was myself, Bill Nearance, and I think Bob Archibald were on that committee. And so we did start the scholarship program when I was in line as an officer or at that time. And that's worked out well ever since.
Sure has. You said you wanted to talk about Skip Pratt. Was he
Skip-
kind of a mentor of yours?
Skippy Pratt, yeah, he was a good guy. Like everybody liked Skippy, and one of the things that we had in common is he had we'll call them coon dogs, raccoon dogs, and he liked to to work his dogs at night, chasing raccoons. So I'm also an avid outdoorsman. I haven't missed a deer season in years, ever since I can remember. Since I after I got out of the Marine Corps, I just kept on doing that for many, many years. But Skippy had coon dogs, and he knew that I liked being outdoors too. So it was myself and Skippy, and Steve Weston sticks in my mind for some reason. And a couple of other guys would go coon hunting. And so one of his places he liked to go is up on Ball Hill, up in Berlin, Northborough, up in that area, up on Ball Hill. So one night we're coon hunting up there, and we got a little lost. So it's a big piece of woods up there. But we finally managed to find our way out. But as I recall, instead of getting out at a reasonable hour, it may have been a little bit of sunlight coming over the mountain. We finally did get out. But it was all in good fun. We had a good time, you know. And we used to hunt with carbide lamps back then instead of the lights. So they were carbide lamps that we used to walk through the woods. They didn't have all the new lights and so on that we have now. Had a great time.
And he was master of the lodge about the same time as Joe Arcanian, maybe, and Bob Bailey. And I think earlier you told me those were hard shoes to follow.
Very hard shoes to follow. I'm looking at past masters for back then. Bruges and Arcanian. Asa Kimball Moody. Asa Kimball. I'll never forget his middle name. It's not here in the communication, but it was Kimball. And of course, Carl Hedberg and Jimmy Karsas, Bob Bailey, Frank Boss, Bob Goodrow, and all those guys, Arthur Whittemore. There were an awful lot of tough shoes to fill coming up in the line for those numbers of years. And of course, Ritual became great. It was just, if you missed a word, it was, oh, you missed one. You know? I used to study my Ritual on the way to work in the morning, and I would have my book pushed up against the window on my dashboard of my car. And I'd be driving down Route 9. That's where I used to study, on Route 9, going to my office over in Needham, Natick and Needham, different offices. And that's where I would study my Ritual in my car. That was the only time I really had to do it. At the time I was married, young children coming up, and so on and so forth. So that's where I studied Ritual. Was taking that trestle, my trestle board, and putting it in my Ritual book and putting it up on the dashboard, pushed up against the window. I remember in 1978, the blizzard of 78, going down Route 9 with my trestle board up on the window.
And I remember they were sticklers for floor work as well.
Oh my goodness. I think that yes, the answer is yes. And the floor work was impeccable. And again, it was that group of guys, and we strived and we worked really hard to make it impeccable. And not everybody was as good at it as some others, and that's understandable. You know, the people have a lot of responsibilities now with work and so on and so forth, and can find it difficult really to do that, and that's understandable. But I'll tell you, even today, the Ritual's pretty good today. It still is good today. I visited lodge, one of the lodges I visited, it was in Wellesley. And one of the reasons being is that there was a certain number of business people in Wellesley that knew I was in the Masonic Lodge, because I had wore my ring and so on and so forth, and they were members in Wellesley, and they invited me to come to their lodge, which I did. But what really surprised me was they would read their Ritual from the book. Now, I hope I don't get anybody in trouble for saying that, but they actually would read the Ritual from the book. Now, I don't know if that's acceptable or not, and it's not acceptable in our lodge, that's for sure, but all the Ritual was read from the book. And that would be, you know, for every position and so on, right through the degrees. So you may want to cut that out, but that's what happened.
December 7th, 1975. Does that date mean anything to you? Well, I can tell you it's the day the lodge burned down.
Oh, the day, yeah, wow. Yeah, how could anybody forget that date? You know, what a happening. I was home. My wife got a phone call. Her brother was a firefighter in Marlboro, and they had a scanner and so on at their house, and we didn't have a scanner and so on. But his wife had a scanner at the house, and she called my wife and said the Masonic Lodge is burning down. So, oh my God. So right away, first thing, my wife and I just scrambled and got out of the house as fast as we could, get down there, and it was cooking when we get down there. And Stevie Weston was probably the last person that got in there. and he got hollered at for doing it too, Steve. But he was, if it wasn't for Steve, we would have lost all of our jewels and the Bible and so on that we have, that we still have today. It was heroic actions on Steve's part that we still have that. But what was really a crying shame was the paintings that we had on the walls there. It just could not be replaced. They were, the value of those would probably be immense today, including, you know, all the different, the sheath of wheat and so on and so forth, and just the shame of the whole thing was that stuff could never be replaced. That was quite a night.
Do you remember how it started?
Yes, Jobber's Outlet was right there, and as the story is told, there was some firecrackers, I believe, that were thrown in through the windows, broke the windows back in Jobber's Outlet, and I believe it was firecrackers that, I'm not 100% sure of that, my recollection, but that's how it started. The fire actually started in Jobber's Outlet, and my understanding and my recollection is that there was some vandalism involved. So that's how it started.
Do you want to tell us how you got started in masonry?
My father-in-law, Charlie Cole. You know, I think I married his daughter. I was going to marry her. I did marry his daughter, and he, you know, trying to impress my father-in-law. Impress my father-in-law. He had a restaurant downtown in Marlboro, Cole's Restaurant, and well, it sounded like something to do, so we'll do that. And so he got me started.
He was also a Shriner?
Yes, he was. I was a Shriner as well, and I think I still have his fez someplace at my house. In fact, I may have given that to the lodge. I think I may have given that to the lodge, and somebody took advantage of it.
And I understand your wife, Carol, was related to Eddie Craig, Leroy Craig, Carl Craig?
Yes, yeah. Married into the, I guess families married, and anyway, they became cousins or something like that. I'm not really sure. I don't want to say that for sure and have to have her correct me. You know how wives are. So.
Well, I'm sure Eddie Craig looked favorably on you joining the lodge and becoming master.
Oh yeah.
He was quite a guy.
Eddie and Carl, yeah.
Do you have any advice for any new masters of the lodge?
Don't do some of the things that we did in lodge. Dick Johnson, myself, Lee Whittemore, Dick Carini, and a couple of others, and I'm not even going to tell you some of the crazy things that we did because we'd get in serious trouble. So we're going to just leave that under the table, Dick. So I'll tell you some of the crazy things we did offline.
Okay, Bob. Any advice for new members?
Yeah, get involved and don't be afraid to talk to your friends and family members about the fraternity. The fraternity grows because of people that speak to other people. Once you become a Mason, you know, and believe me, being a Mason back when I joined, oh, he's a Mason? You know, I don't know if that happens today or not, but, and I seriously and honestly believe that being a Mason made me a better man. And I think it makes better men, many men, better by being a Mason. That, you know, there are other people that you influence. There are other people that make their lives better from Masonry, and it gives you, I feel, some worth in Masonry. it gives you worth. It makes you feel good about doing things.
Bob, I think that's a good note to end on. I've enjoyed this morning. Is there anything else you want to say or any last things? I don't want to cut you off.
No, I only regret that I don't get to lodge as much as I used to, and I'm just turning 80, and there's aches and pains, and there's some nights you just don't want to get your lazy butt out of the chair, and all the excuses, and there are excuses at times, but when I get there, I enjoy it a lot, and I miss a lot of the people that aren't with us any longer, that we've lost in the lodge, and I look forward to many more years. And again, my faithful attendance has not been that good, the faithful attendance, and of course, I'm going to try to better that, but I still enjoy seeing all the old guys and talking about the past.
Well, I enjoyed this morning. I'm sure I'll enjoy more times in lodge with you. And I wish you good luck this afternoon. I'm looking for that big 8-pointed buck.
Either that or that really tasty and not too chewy 100-pound doe. Thanks very much. I enjoyed doing this.
I hope you enjoyed this discussion. There will be more chats with senior members of our lodge. We will reminisce about colorful characters, the 1975 fire, past activities. You may learn where our lodge furniture came from, who made our altar, and hear about the infamous pink degree.